Forget the crowded tourist traps and noisy city streets. Tonight, we surrender to the ink-black ripples of Venice's secret waterways, where the only sound is the rhythmic dip of a single oar against the midnight silence. Experience the profound, haunting stillness of a city floating between moonlight and ancient stone. Let's experience a relaxing night aboard a gondola in Venice. Before we begin our journey, I want to share the heart behind Sleep-Bound Traveler. This space was created for adults who long for a moment of peace, a soft landing at the end of a long day. Think of it as your nightly passport to calm, where every story becomes a doorway to rest. If these journeys bring you comfort, consider liking, subscribing, and giving us a comment. It helps us continue creating peaceful escapes for you to enjoy night after night. Now, take a breath with me. Breathe in through your nose, gently and without effort, as though you are drawing the cool night air of an ancient city into your chest. Hold it there for just a moment, easy, unhurried, and then let it drift out between your lips in a long, quiet release. That's it. Your shoulders drop, your jaw unclenches. The small furrow between your brows smooths away, like the surface of still water. You are now calm and relaxed. You are simply here, enjoying something beautiful. We are in Venice, the one that only exists after midnight, when the tourists have gone to bed and the city returns to itself, settles into its own quiet bones, breathes out, and becomes ancient again. This Venice belongs to no one and everyone. It belongs to the cat who walked the stone ledges without a sound. It belongs to the pale lantern light that shivers on the water. It belongs to you tonight as you close your eyes and let the gentle rhythm of a gondola carry you somewhere soft and unhurried. There is a particular quality to the air in Venice at this hour that you will not find in any other city on earth. Part of it is the salt. The lagoon is always there, even when you cannot see it, and its breath moves through the streets and over the water, and settles on everything with a faint, marine coolness that is completely its own. Part of it is the stone, which holds the day's residual warmth, and releases it slowly through the night, so that the air near the walls is a degree or two warmer than the air above the water. And moving between the two is like moving between two different kinds of comfort. And part of it is something that cannot be named, something that cities accrue over centuries of habitation, a quality of atmosphere that is the sum of everything that has ever happened within a place, distilled to pure presence. You breathe this air, and it fills you with something more than oxygen. It fills you with the particular peace of being somewhere ancient, somewhere that has absorbed more human experience than you could imagine, and survived it all intact. It has been flooded, burned, besieged and celebrated, returning to its beauty. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a small private dock, the kind that only locals know. The stones beneath your feet are old, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, by the boots of fishermen and merchants and lovers and wanderers who stood exactly where you stand now, looking out at the same dark water, yet feeling the same ancient hush settle around them like a cloak. The air is cool and faintly damp against your skin. Not cold, never cold, just the gentle coolness of a March night in a city built on the sea, in the kind of coolness that feels like permission. That is to breathe slower and to feel the warmth of your own body, the weight of your own limbs, the particular piece of a body that has finally, mercifully, stopped moving. Listen to the water. It is here already, whispering against the stone at the base of the dock with that soft, wet, rhythmic sound that is older than language. The canal is narrow here, and the water is dark, and it holds the moon in a shimmering, trembling oval of silver light that rocks gently as though the city itself is breathing. And there, at the end of the dock, is the gondola. It is long and black and impossibly elegant, the way all beautiful old things are elegant, without trying, without calling attention to itself. Its hull sits low in the water and moves with the current in the most unhurried, liquid way, a gentle rise and fall, a breath in and a breath out. The wood has been polished to a deep, dark shine, and where the lantern at its prow catches the surface, there is a faint amber gleam, warm as firelight. A single gondolier stands at the stern. He wears a simple, dark jacket, and he is still, and he is patient, and he does not rush you. He has stood here before, in this same spot, on hundreds of quiet nights, exactly like this one, and he understands without words that some journeys cannot be hurried. You step down into the gondola carefully, and it rocks slightly beneath your weight. Just slightly, just enough to make you feel its aliveness, the way it is connected to the water beneath, the way the water connects to everything. You settle into the low cushioned seat, which is softer than you expect, and you feel the gondola accept you, cradle you, hold you gently between its dark wooden sides. The gondolier shifts his weight without a word, and the oar moves through the water with a sound like a whispered secret, a soft, low gurgle, a glide, a pull, and then you are moving, gently, almost imperceptibly at first, and then with a smooth and effortless purpose that feels less like traveling and more like dreaming. The dock falls away behind you. The city folds around you on both sides. Walls of pale stone rising from the water's edge. Windows shuttered and dark. Balconies trailing the last remnants of winter's dried herbs. And above, between the rooftops, a strip of deep velvet sky dusted with cold, distant stars. The gondolier's oar moves in a long, sweeping arc through the black water, and the sound it makes is rhythmic and low and deeply, profoundly soothing. You can hear it so clearly in the quiet. The push of wood through water, a small surge at the end of each stroke, the pause as the oar lifts and arcs back, and then the next slow plunge, over and over. A metronome made of water and patience. Let that rhythm enter you. Let it slow your breathing. There is no hurry here. There has never been any hurry here. Venice was built over centuries, stone by stone, piling by piling, and it does not understand the frantic modern pace of elsewhere. It simply floats, as it always has, suspended between water and sky, between the past and the present, between waking and sleep. The canal bends slightly ahead, and the gondolier reads the curve before it comes, adjusting the angle of the oar with such subtle precision that you barely feel the change in direction. It is less a turn than a leaning, a gentle tilting of the world. This is what it means to know something so well that effort disappears entirely into the body. The gondolier does not think about the oar. The gondolier simply moves, and the oar moves with him. And the gondola moves with the oar, and you move with all of it. The whole system flowing as a single unhurried breath through the water of the city. You could watch the oar for a long time. It is worth watching. Each stroke is the same, and yet each stroke is slightly different, adapted to the current micro-conditions of the water. The faint pull of a side channel. The way awake from some earlier passage has left the surface just slightly restless in one patch. The gondolier's body makes these adjustments automatically, continuously, in the way that a musician makes the 1,000 tiny adjustments of breath and pressure and touch that produce the sustained illusion of something effortless. You watch it, and your own breathing begins to follow it, stroke by stroke, without your choosing. Behind you, at the mouth of the canal where it opens onto the grand waterway, you can still see the warm constellation of the main docks, the amber lanterns strung between poles, the soft orange glow of cafe windows where someone sits alone with a late espresso, the occasional shimmer of a vaporetto's light cutting the far distance. It is the last visible edge of the world you came from, bright and familiar and fading. Ahead, the canal narrows. The light diminishes. The stone walls lean closer on either side, close enough that you feel you could reach out and drag your fingertips along their surface without fully extending your arm. And the shadows ahead are dense and blue and invitation deep. This is where Venice becomes something else entirely. You let it narrow around you. You let the light behind recede. You breathe in the faint, mineral scent of old water and aged stone. And it is not unpleasant. It is ancient and particular, and real in a way that only truly old things are real. It is the smell of a city that has survived 1,000 years of tides. The gondolier calls out softly in the darkness. A single syllable, low and musical, and you understand, without knowing the words, that it is a signal, the instinctive courtesy of these narrow passages, a notification to the empty darkness that someone is coming through. No one answers. There is no one. Only the canal, the stone, and the soft lap of water against the hull as you glide deeper in. Your hands rest in your lap, and they are warm and heavy. Your back settles into the cushioned seat. You feel the faint vibration of the water traveling through the gondola's hull and into your body like a slow, gentle pulse. You are not driving anything. You have handed that to someone else entirely, and it feels so good. It feels like relief. It feels like the first moment of real rest. You glide beneath the first arch, and the world changes. The stone above you is limestone, heavy and pale and slightly luminous, even in the dark, as though it has stored centuries of sunlight and releases it now in the faintest possible glow. The arch curves overhead with a graceful precision that makes you think of hands pressed together in prayer, or of a breath held and then slowly released. It is low enough that you feel it, that slight compression of space, and the sound changes completely. Everything becomes more resonant, more present. The quiet drip of water from the keystone, amplified into something that fills your ears with a soft, percussive music. The echo of water in a stone arch that was placed here 600 years ago by builders who are long gone, who stood knee-deep in lagoon water and pressed each stone into place with hands that knew no other purpose. The sound they made then is the same sound now. The canal opens slightly, and there is a window on your right, a single shuttered window on the second floor of a narrow building that leans very slightly toward its neighbor, the way old friends lean toward each other in conversation. Through the shutter's narrow slats, a warm amber light pulses gently. A lamp, or a candle, or perhaps a television, playing something soft. And for just a moment, it catches the brickwork of the opposite wall in a brief and tender illumination. You see it in that flash, the texture of 5 centuries of salt and tide, bricks that have been smoothed by floodwater and worn by sea wind and patched by hands in every generation. their faces pocked and pitted and stained with the beautiful damage of time. There are cracks that have been filled with mortar the color of old cream. There are water lines left by ancient floods, ghostly horizontal bands at varying heights, a record of every high water event that this building has survived. There are places where the plaster has fallen away entirely, and the original brick beneath is the dark terracotta red of old earth, warm even in the dark. You watch it for just a moment as you pass, and then the window light is behind you, and the texture disappears back into shadow, and you are aware of it all the same. The wall, right there beside you in the dark, breathing its slow stone breath. The canal turns, and suddenly you pass through a second arch, this one lower and narrower than the first, and the gondola slows almost imperceptibly as the gondolier navigates the curve with the economy of someone who has done this 10,000 times. You hear the scrape of the oar against the stone edge, a single quiet sound, and then you are through, and the world opens. The canal widens into a junction, 3 waterways meeting in a small moonlit clearing, surrounded on all sides by the sleeping backs of buildings. It happens suddenly, the way all great openings happen suddenly, and your breath catches just slightly with the beauty of it. The moon is there, full and low and intensely silver, pouring its light straight down into the junction and turning the water into hammered metal. The buildings around you, 4 stories of stone and pale plaster and shuttered windows, are washed in that cold, extraordinary light from above, and their reflections pool in the water beneath you in wavering towers of silver and black and the deep blue of shadow. You do not need to say anything. There is nothing to say. You simply exist in the middle of this moonlit junction, in this black gondola, on this silver water, in the middle of a sleeping city that has been here for 1,000 years and will be here for 1,000 more. The gondolier turns the vessel with a single, elegant movement of the oar, and you enter the longest canal you have yet traveled, a wide corridor of water that runs straight for what feels like a very long way, its far end lost in a soft darkness that might be mist or might simply be the night, folding gently over itself. The moon is directly overhead now, and its reflection runs the length of the canal ahead of you like a silver road, a path laid down by light on dark water, impossibly beautiful and shifting with every breath of wind. You are sailing straight toward it, and it retreats as you approach, always the same distance ahead, always perfectly framed between the stone walls on either side. A path you can never quite reach, and yet keep following, which is perhaps the truest thing about beauty. Watch the water's surface. It is not entirely still. There is a faint, continuous movement, 1,000 small ripples and microcurrents that catch the moonlight differently at every angle, so that the silver is never uniform, never flat. It is alive with texture, with the faint trembling caused by the gondola's passage, by the deep and distant movement of the lagoon, by the simple fact of being water, which is never entirely at rest. Think for a moment about what it means that the moon's light can do this, can travel 93 million miles across the empty dark of space, and then reflect from the surface of a canal in Venice, and enter your eyes and make something inside you feel less small, more held, more connected to the turning of large and patient things. The moon does not know you are here, and yet it illuminates your path. It does not choose you, and yet you feel chosen. That is the particular alchemy of beauty at night, in a place as old as this. Everything becomes personal. and nothing requires explanation. The canal widens slightly as you travel its length, so gradually that you almost do not notice until you realize the walls on either side are not quite as close as they were, that the strip of sky above has broadened, that the sound of the water is slightly more open and resonant now, carrying a little further before the stone returns it. You have moved from the intimate to the merely quiet, from the close embrace of narrow walls to the slightly larger room of a main secondary canal. And the transition is as gentle as moving from one room of a comfortable house to another. The city on either side is sleeping, deeply, completely sleeping. The kind of sleep that cities fall into after midnight, when the last restaurants have shuttered and the last footsteps have crossed the last bridge, and even the cats have found their corners. The windows are uniformly dark. The balconies are empty. Every door is closed. And in that absolute quiet, you become aware of the sound of your own breathing. It is slow, slower than it was when you arrived at the dock, slower than it was when you first settled into this seat. It has matched itself, almost without your noticing, to the rhythm of the oar, to the long, slow pulse of the gondola's passage, to the breathing of Venice itself in its deep, ancient sleep. Breathe with me now, in slowly, feeling the cool night air fill you completely, and out, gently, releasing everything you carried into this moment. Your body is heavy and warm. Your thoughts are becoming slow and soft, like the images in a dream before it fully forms, like the last light on the water just before full dark. From somewhere distant, perhaps 3 canals away, perhaps a kilometer across the sleeping city, a bell tower chimes. Single notes, slow and clear and carrying perfectly through the still air, each one hanging in the silence for a long moment before fading. You count them without trying. 1, 2, 3. The last note fades until it is less a sound than a memory of a sound, and then the silence returns, deeper than before, as though the bell has cleared a space in the air that the quiet now fills completely. 3 o'clock in the morning, in a city that has been counting its hours by bell tower for 6 centuries. You have arrived at the deepest part of the night, the still point at the center of the dark, and it is one of the most peaceful places in the world. Turn and look behind you, just for a moment. Watch the water where the gondola has passed. The oar's wake fans out behind you in a slow and spreading chevron, and at its center, the water is disturbed into a series of small, overlapping ripples that catch the moonlight in flashes of silver, and then, gradually, smooth themselves back out. The pattern the gondola draws in the water is like a signature written in a language of motion. Something was here, something passed, and now the water is drawing the evidence slowly back into itself, returning to its original stillness. Watch the ripples until they are gone. They always go. The water always smooths. Everything returns to itself. In the end, calm and whole and unmarked. The gondolier turns again, without announcement, and you enter a passage so narrow that the walls seem to breathe around you. This is one of the city's back arteries, the small forgotten channels that do not appear on the tourist maps, that most visitors never find, that feel less like thoroughfares and more like secrets. The water here is absolutely still. No current moves it. No wind reaches it between these close stone walls. And the surface is so flat and so perfectly reflective that for a moment you feel a strange and beautiful disorientation, as though you are not traveling through a canal, but through a space between two worlds, the real city above and its perfect inverted twin below, both of them equally quiet, equally complete. The gondola barely makes a sound here. The oar dips and withdraws with a care and quietness that feels almost reverential, and the tiny ripples from the hull spread outward in slow, perfect rings until they reach the walls on either side and dissolve against the stone without a sound. You move through this stillness like a thought through a very peaceful mind, present, unhurried, leaving almost no trace. The buildings here are older than the ones on the wider canals. You can feel it somehow. A particular quality of age, a density of history, that the larger and more visited waterways have been worn down by centuries of commercial traffic and tourist eyes. Here, history sits on everything undisturbed. The stone walls are dark with moisture at their base and lighter above. And between the courses of brick, you can see the pale lines of old mortar applied in slightly different shades as each generation made its small repairs. Look up along the walls. A wrought iron balcony on the first floor, its scrollwork dark and elaborate, curling into small flourishes at the corners that someone designed with real care a very long time ago, as though beauty was a thing worth spending time on, even in a small back alley balcony that almost no one would ever see. Its railing holds a single terracotta pot, empty now in March, waiting for whatever it will grow in spring. In the still water below the balcony, the reflection is so perfect that for a moment it seems there are two balconies, one above and one below, the real iron and the mirror image, equally detailed, equally patient, equally beautiful in the dark. Further along, the shutters of a ground floor window are painted a faded green that might once have been the color of summer leaves, but has gentled now into something more complex. A weathered, salt-touched green that is its own color entirely, a color that only exists in places where wood has spent decades negotiating with sea air. The hinges are old iron, slightly rusty, and the shutter hangs at a very faint angle, as though the building it belongs to has settled infinitesimally over the centuries, and the geometry has adjusted without anyone noticing. These are the details that the city keeps for itself, for the ones who come quietly and slowly, for the ones in black gondolas at 3 a.m. who have nowhere to be and nothing to rush toward. These details are a reward for patience. You pass beneath a small stone bridge, barely wide enough for 2 people to cross side by side, its arch just high enough to clear the gondola's prow. As you glide beneath it, you look up and see the underside of the bridge, a low vault of old brick laid in the herringbone pattern that Venetian builders favoured. Every brick exactly placed, the mortar between them now worn to soft hollows by centuries of damp air. In the curved centre of the vault, someone, sometime, decades or perhaps a century ago, it is impossible to say, has scratched their initials into the mortar. 2 letters, faint and simple. You cannot read them in the dark, but you know they are there, and the knowledge of them is a small and particular warmth. Someone stood here, perhaps a gondolier waiting out a rain shower, or a child whose family lived in the building above, or simply a person who wanted to be remembered and pressed their initials into wet mortar with a fingernail or a key or a piece of broken tile, wanting to leave something of themselves in this old city that preserves everything. And here they are still, in the dark beneath the bridge, invisible and permanent, and quietly moving in the way that evidence of human presence in ancient places always moves. You drift out from beneath the bridge and the initials are behind you and above you and somehow still with you. You feel the atmosphere shift as you move deeper. It is subtle at first, a slight thickening of the quiet, a sense of the city's history becoming more concentrated, more palpable, as though in these narrow back channels, the past has more room to breathe, less competition from the present. You feel it the way you feel a change in air pressure before rain, a gentle adjustment somewhere behind your ears, a soft and particular awareness. This is the labyrinthine heart of the floating city. These passages connect to other passages, which connect to others, which eventually open onto the wide water of the lagoon. But that is far from here, far from this immediate world of narrow stone and still water, and the patient rhythm of a single oar. Right now, there is only this canal, this passage, this soft and ancient dark. You are calm. You are completely relaxed. There is nothing in the world right now but this beautiful experience. And it is enough. It is more than enough. It is everything. A cat appears on a ledge above you, just for a moment. Just a glimpse of pale fur and two eyes catching the dim light before it vanishes soundlessly behind a chimney. Venice has always had cats. They have always walked these ledges and slept in these shadows and observed these waterways from their high stone vantages with an air of complete and untroubled ownership. You smile without meaning to. A cat on a ledge in Venice at 3 a.m. feels like exactly the right thing to see. The gondolier pauses his stroke and the vessel drifts on its own momentum through a particularly tight passage where the walls are so close you can hear the echo of the water between them with extraordinary clarity. Every small ripple from the hull is returned to you magnified and musical, a soft chorus of reflections that surrounds you completely. You are inside the sound. You are floating through a music made of water and stone and the faint breathing of a sleeping city. And then the walls open again, just slightly, and there is another junction, smaller than the moonlit one from before, more intimate, a private courtyard of water where 3 narrow canals meet at angles that no right angle could describe. A single lamp on an iron bracket at the corner of a building throws a circle of amber light onto the water below it, and in that circle, the surface is a warm gold shot, through with the moving shadows of its own ripples. The gondolier guides you through the center of this junction without touching the light, so that you pass through darkness, and then amber, and then darkness again. And the transitions are so gentle that they feel like breathing. The gondolier pauses once more, allowing the vessel to drift on its own silent momentum through the heart of the backwater, and you feel the absence of his stroke the way you feel a clock stop, a sudden awareness of something that had been constant, now resting. The gondola glides without him, carried by the last memory of the water's push, and the silence that fills the space where the oar's sound had been is enormous. This is the stillest place you have been yet. The narrow canal walls on either side are so old here that the stone has taken on an almost biological quality, the way very old things eventually do, as though the years have given it a kind of patience that is almost alive. The walls do not press. They simply exist, exactly as they have existed, with a permanence that is its own kind of comfort. Nothing here is temporary. Nothing here is rushed. Time moves differently against stone this old. It moves the way water moves, with a continuity that erases urgency entirely. You breathe in and out. The sound of your own breath is audible here, just barely, in this enclosed and quiet passage. Not loud, not intrusive, just present. A small, warm reminder that you are alive and here and breathing in a city that has watched countless people breathe in these same narrow passages across the centuries. There is something oddly companionable about that. You are not alone at this moment. You are surrounded by time, which is a kind of company, somewhere far above, where the rooftops narrow the sky to a ribbon of deep blue. A single bird calls out, one low melodic note, questioning the dark, and then silence again. Perhaps it is a swallow that has woken briefly in its roost and found the night still satisfactory. Perhaps it is a gull that has wandered from the lagoon shore. It does not matter. The sound is clean and singular and perfect against the quiet. The way a single brushstroke on white paper can say everything. Then it is gone, and the silence returns. The gondola drifts to a momentary stop between two old stone walls, and for just a moment, you are held in a kind of absolute suspension. No forward motion, no sound, no light except the faint, distant glow at the canal's far end. You exist in a pause between one thing and the next, and that pause is long enough to feel, long enough to settle into, long enough to understand as a gift. You become aware, in this suspension, of the extraordinary complexity of the quiet. It is not one silence. There is the silence of the still air between the buildings, which is different from the silence of the water's surface, which is different again from the silence inside the stone walls themselves, which absorb rather than reflect, and so create a quality of hush that is darker and more complete than the other silences. And beneath all of these, the deep silence of the lagoon, the primordial quiet of all that water in the dark, holding everything up. You are held at the center of all these silences, and you feel each one, and they are all gentle, all safe, all entirely without demand. They do not ask anything of you. They do not require your attention or your effort. They simply wrap around you with the unhurried warmth of everything old and patient and true. Your eyelids are heavier now. You do not fight this. There is nothing to fight. The gondola holds you. The water holds the gondola. And everything is held by the vast and patient presence of the lagoon beneath the city, beneath the stone, beneath the lives that have been lived here, in layers going all the way back to people who arrived in boats to escape the world of their time and built something extraordinary in the middle of the sea. Let your eyes close for a moment, just a moment. The sound will carry you. The rhythm will carry you. You do not need to see to travel. The water and the stone and the ore and the night will move you forward gently, as they have been doing all along. In the dark, behind your closed eyelids, you can still feel the gondola's motion, that slow, hypnotic rock and glide, that liquid rhythm that is nothing like the motion of cars or trains or anything mechanical. This is older than machines. This is the motion of a city that has moved by water for 1,000 years, a motion that has been absorbed into the muscle memory of this place, into the stones themselves, into the air that carries the sound of the oar's pull. The city dreams around you. Every building holds the compressed and layered history of everyone who ever lived there. Every argument and embrace, every birth and death, every ordinary morning and extraordinary night, every meal eaten and song sung and prayer offered and secret kept. All of it is layered into the walls that rise on either side of you in the dark. And all of it is sleeping. And all of it is quiet. And all of it has found, in the end, the same stillness that you are finding now. There is something very comforting about that. The thought that this peace you feel is not just yours, that the same quiet has fallen over Venice in some form for every generation that has ever known it. The people who lived centuries before you also sat at the edge of this water in the small hours and felt their breathing slow and their shoulders drop and the grip of the world release. The peace is old. It is older than you. It was here before you arrived, and it will be here after. And tonight, it is yours to rest in completely. The gondola turns once more, slow and easy, and the canal you enter now is the narrowest yet, a private channel barely wide enough for the vessel, the walls so close that you can hear the water differently here. A more intimate sound. The ripples from the hull traveling a shorter distance before they meet stone and return. The sound wraps around you like something soft, like the particular comfort of a small and close space, a space that holds you without pressing, that is just large enough for exactly this. Look up. Between the rooftops, the strip of sky is narrow and deeply, perfectly blue. Not black, but blue. That particular blue that the sky is in Venice in March in the deep middle of the night. A blue that holds the stars carefully, each one in its place, motionless and cold and extraordinarily far away, and somehow, inexplicably, comforting. They have been there for the whole journey. They will be there when you sleep. The gondola is slowing. You feel it before you see it. A subtle diminishment of that forward pull. The oar strokes becoming longer and slower and further apart. The silences between them growing. The gondolier is guiding you toward the end of the journey, and he does it without announcement, the way all good endings come, naturally and without drama, as though the night itself has decided it is time. The canal opens ahead into a small enclosed basin, barely larger than a courtyard. A private mooring, sheltered on 3 sides by the backs of sleeping buildings, and open on the 4th to a low stone wall beyond which the lagoon glimmers dimly in the middle distance. There is no one here. There are no lights. There are only the water, the stone, and the moon overhead. Beginning now its slow descent toward the western horizon. The gondola settles. The oar lifts from the water and comes to rest against the gunwale with the softest possible sound. A small wooden knock, a final punctuation, and then there is nothing but the sound of the water. That continuous, patient, and entirely unhurried conversation between the surface of the canal and the stone at its edges. The air here in this enclosed basin is completely still. No wind reaches it, and the sounds of the city, if there were any, would be absorbed by the stone before they arrived. You are in a pocket of absolute quiet, a small room made of water and shadow and night air, and it is holding you with great gentleness. Let your body feel the gondola beneath you. Feel the seat, soft and steady. Feel the slight give of the hull as the water breathes against it. A millimeter of movement, no more, just enough to remind you that you are floating, that the water is below you, that you are suspended between its surface and the sky above in a vessel that has been trusted for 1,000 years. The moon is on the water directly ahead. Its reflection is long and still in this sheltered basin, reaching from the far wall to the gondola's prow in a broad stroke of silver that barely moves at all. If you watch it very patiently, and there is nothing but patience here now, nothing but this, you can see the faintest trembling at its edges, the most delicate rippling where the light meets the dark water, and they negotiate their boundary together. Watch the moonlight. Watch it drift. Watch the small and subtle changes in its surface as the water makes its infinitesimal adjustments, as the reflected light shifts a degree this way and a degree that way, as the whole shimmering column breathes with a slow and gentle life. There is so much to see in stillness. There is so much that only becomes visible when you stop moving and simply look. Your thoughts are very soft now. They do not press. They arrive and depart without urgency, the way the small ripples arrive at the stone wall and return without complaint. Something from earlier in the day, a face, a phrase, a half-formed worry, passes through and dissolves back into the quiet. Another thought, softer still. Then something that is barely a thought at all, more a colour or a feeling. Something the colour of warm amber light on old stone. Something the feeling of water beneath a gondola. Something that is just this, just here. You are so comfortable. You are so completely, entirely, unreservedly comfortable. There is no effort required. There is nothing to hold up. There is nothing to maintain. You are allowed to be exactly as heavy as you are. Exactly as tired as you are. Exactly as ready as you are. A breath of air moves through the basin. So faint it is barely a breath at all. Just the gentlest possible shift in the night air, carrying with it the mineral trace of old stone, and the deeper, older smell of the lagoon beyond the wall, the smell of salt and distance, and the long patience of the sea. It touches your face for a moment, and then it is gone, and the air is still again, and you close your eyes. The moonlight is still there behind your eyelids, not as light, but as warmth, as the faint golden memory of light, as the knowledge that it is there even when you cannot see it. The water is still there as sound, as the softest continuous conversation with the stone. The gondola is still there as motion, as the merest suggestion of rocking, barely there. Venice is dreaming now. You are dreaming now. The line between the city and the dream has grown very thin, very permeable, and things move through it both ways without sound. The moonlight on the water becomes a moonlight inside you. The still air becomes a stillness inside you. The patience of the stone becomes a patience inside you. The ancient, unhurried rhythm of the oar becomes a rhythm inside you, deep in your chest, slow and steady, and utterly without urgency. The stars above the basin are very steady. They do not flicker here. There is no wind to move the air that holds their light, and they come through clear and cold and precise, each one in its ancient position, each one having travelled unimaginable distances to arrive in your sky tonight. They were there above Venice in the 14th century, when the first stone foundations were driven into the lagoon bed. They were there when the great painters looked up from their studios and mixed that particular blue. They are here now. They will be here when you wake, though by then they will have turned to the west, and the day will have taken them, and you will not need them anymore. The gondolier makes one last, barely perceptible movement of the oar. A single slow pull that settles the gondola into its final position, perfectly still against the wooden piling, perfectly still on the perfectly still water, perfectly still in the center of this moonlit basin in the heart of a sleeping city. He ships the oar. The sound it makes is the quietest possible sound, a soft whisper of wood coming to rest. And then there is nothing but the water. Listen to the water. Let it be the last thing. The small, repetitive, tireless, endlessly patient sound of water against stone, water against hull, water moving over itself in slow and nearly invisible currents that have been moving since before there was a city here, that will continue when everything else has stalled. It asks nothing of you. It requires nothing. It simply continues, as it always has, as it always will. Think of how many people in the world right now are sleeping. Millions, hundreds of millions, in every country and every time zone, lying in every configuration of pillow and blanket and darkened room. Their breathing slow and regular, their bodies doing the essential and extraordinary work of restoration that only sleep allows. You are joining them now. You are one of an enormous, invisible company of the quietly resting. All of you breathing together in the dark across all the distances. All of you held by the same planet, the same gravity, the same patient turning of the world toward morning. Your body knows how to relax. It has always been known, long before you had words for sleep or rest or peace. Your body knew the way down into the deep restorative quiet, and it is going there now, following a path that is older than thought, guided by the weight of your own limbs and the slow tide of your breath. You do not need to do anything. Let your thoughts go one by one, like lanterns released on the water. Each one drifts a little way, and then the dark takes it, gently, without effort. The lanterns do not go out. They simply move beyond the range of your concern, and that is fine. That is exactly right. They will be there in the morning if you need them. Tonight, they are floating peacefully away. You can let your awareness go wherever it wants to go. Deeper in, perhaps, into the warm dark behind your eyes. Into the gentle floating place that is just barely a place at all. Just on the other side of thought. Venice will still be here. The canal will still be here. The stone arch, and the moonlit junction, and the wrought iron balcony, and the cat on the ledge, and the bell that chimed 3 times in the deep heart of the night. All of it will still be here, exactly as it was, patient and beautiful, and lit by the same moon, whenever you are ready to return. The city is not going anywhere. It has not gone anywhere in 1,000 years. It will wait for you, as it waits for everyone who loves it, with the perfect and unconditional patience of water and stone. Sleep now. Buonanotte.